Hey everyone, and welcome back to our city, Lakewood. This episode was inspired by a comment from Vittorio Callis that I received on one of my previous episodes. They asked why I was building new facilities instead of just raising the budget past 100%. And I actually didn't have a specific reason and had to look up the mechanics behind how budgeting works. So this episode is going to be about the economy panel, which includes taxes, budgets, loans, and a summary of the income and expenses of our city. The economy panel is available at the start of your city once you build your first segment of road. It is accessible by going to the City Services menu at the bottom and clicking on the money icon. We're going to start with budget, as this is immediately available within the economy panel. The taxes and loans are not available until you reach your first milestone. Within the budget tab, each icon and set of sliders corresponds to a city service. The icon on the left tells you what city service it is. The sliders go from 50 to 150% and show you your budget percentage during the day and night, and the dollar amount on the right tells you how much money you are spending for that specific service. At the start of your city, the only budgets that are available are roads, electricity, and water. You can save a little bit of money by decreasing both the water and electricity budgets to their minimum because your city will be producing more than what it needs. You can then gradually increase the budget as the demand arises up to 100%, at which point you should build another facility. The other budget types will be available as your city grows and you unlock each of the services. If you hover your mouse over the icon on the left, it will tell you what changing the budget will affect, but unfortunately it doesn't paint the whole picture. If we hover over the healthcare icon, it tells us that raising the budget will increase the number of vehicles available to use. Now this is true, but also means it will affect the coverage radius of the facility. Decreasing the budget reduces the coverage area, and increasing the budget expands the coverage area. And now this might seem pretty obvious, but we also need to consider the diminishing returns from increasing the budget over 100%. The City Skylines wiki page provides formulas for calculating the service levels based on the budget. The city service level between 50 and 100% budget is calculated differently than the city service between 100 and 150%. Between 50 and 100%, the service level is calculated as follows, where B represents the budget, and then between 100 and 150%, the formula changes to this. But since this isn't math class, I've reproduced the graph using the formulas because it is much easier to see visually than trying to go through the formula turn by turn. The bottom part of our graph in blue represents our service level from a budget of 50 to 100%. A couple things that we can note is that with a 50% budget, the minimum service level we can have is 25%. The amount of service we get per increase in budget is exponential up until 100%, so we are getting the most value for the money that we are spending. The top part of our graph in orange represents the budget from 100 to 150%, and the maximum service level that we can achieve is only 125%. So for an extra 50% cost, we are only receiving 25% more service. From the graph, we can see that it eventually plateaus at a maximum of 125%, which means that we receive the most benefit just above 100% and the least benefit towards 150% budget. In fact, from 125 to 150% budget, we only receive 6.25% more service level, but going from 100 to 125%, we receive 18.75% more service. And what does this all mean for us? Well, other than the water and electricity budgets, I think it is best to keep most of our city services as close to 100% as possible for both day and night. If we decrease the budgets of services that have a radius of influence, such as ambulance, fire, and police, we will start affecting property values around them. As we briefly discussed in the previous video, these property values are important for keeping our citizens happy and leveling up their buildings. Only the amount of water and electricity being produced is affected by changing the budget, and these services do not have a radius of influence like the others. Other services in the budget window that do not have a radius of influence are for public transportation. For these services, the budget sliders only affect the number of vehicles traveling on the lines. At night, there should be less people traveling, so it may be a good idea to reduce the number of vehicles to try and save a little bit of money. The downside to this approach is that it will affect all lines of that transportation type at the same time. However, with the Mass Transit DLC, instead of using the economy panel, You can go into each individual line and change the number of vehicles traveling on it and make lines for day and night travel, since each line may require different changes. Now this can be a bit tedious, and the city right now isn't losing a lot of money, so I haven't done much adjustment to the lines since they'll likely change more than once before the city is complete. And I can only recommend an increase in budget a little bit above 100%, as eventually the cost outweighs the benefit. If you're struggling with money, this could be a short-term fix to try and increase some of these services while you're waiting to build something new, and you actually only need a 1% increase above 100% to get another vehicle for your city services. This includes cemeteries and crematoriums, garbage collection, park and road maintenance, etc. Most of the city services do not have all of their vehicles running at the same time, but some do, and a 1% increase in cost for an extra vehicle is quite small. Taxes, as I mentioned earlier, are unlocked at the same time as loans at the first milestone, which is Little Hamlet. These taxes are applied to each of the different zone types within the city. Initially, you can adjust the taxes for residential, low-density commercial, and industrial. The taxes for the other zones are unlocked at the same time that they are at the Big Town milestone. Taxes start at a default 9% and can range from 1 to 29%. However, your citizens will start to complain if you raise your taxes too high, and I recommend keeping them at a maximum of 12%. If you're in need of a quick burst of cash, as I mentioned in the disaster tutorial video, you can raise your taxes briefly and then lower them once the complaint icons start turning red. Not only do taxes increase the income of your city, but they also affect the demand and happiness of each zone type. I was unable to quantify these effects, but I could show that a decrease in taxes increased the happiness of the different zones. The taxes in the economy panel are citywide, but you can also use some policies to adjust taxes citywide or on a district-by-district basis. Policies are citywide by clicking on the Policies tab at the bottom of the screen, or they can be for a specific district by clicking on the district and then going to the Policies button. Under the Taxation tab, we have tax increases and decreases of 2% for each zone type. So if we recently zoned a new district, we could use tax breaks as an incentive for citizens to move into that area. Another option we could implement is to have our taxes in the economy panel at 10% and all tax increase policies turned on to get our maximum of 12%. Now if we want to lower taxes in a specific district, we could go as low as 8%, but still keep everything else at 12%. There are some other service and city planning policies that affect taxation of each zone type, such as Let Go of Leisure from the After Dark DLC, that removes all taxation from leisure districts, recycling, which slightly reduces all tax income, recreational use, which slightly increases tax income, fishing license from the Sunset Harbour DLC, that increases residential tax income by 5%, workers' union reduces residential tax income by 2%, and extra insulation from the Snowfall DLC produces less tax income. Other policies that will indirectly affect your tax income are policies such as the Small Business Enthusiast, Big Business Benefactor, and Industrial Space Planning. These will increase the sales of those zone types, thus increasing your tax income while keeping it at the same percentage. The last tab at the top of the economy panel is loans. I think most people are relatively familiar with how loans work, and the UI is pretty good at explaining exactly what's going on. From left to right, each loan is successively larger, has a higher interest rate, and is paid off over a longer period of time. Because of the higher interest rate, you'll pay more over the lifetime of the Pyramid Capital loan than you would the Silver Sunset Bank loan. The weekly cost between these two loans is relatively the same, but the Middle Global Credit Inc. loan is a bit less. You can pay off these loans at any point with no extra cost to you, and it is a good idea to have them available in the event that you need one. You can take it out immediately. And finally, at the bottom of the economy panel, we have a breakdown of the income and expenses of our city. The first tab is an overview of everything in the city, with income on the left and expenses on the right. If we hover over the eye icon on some of these, it shows us all of the associated items within that category. Moving along the tabs from left to right, it shows a more detailed view of the income and expenses of some of the zone types and services within our city. This is a useful tool for analyzing the overall budget of our city and trying to find areas where we are losing money or maybe spending too much money. I think that about covers everything for the economy panel, but it is possible that I may have missed some things, so please don't hesitate to share your knowledge down below for myself or others who may be watching the video. I will also link the City Skylines wiki page in the description if anyone is still a little unsure of what I was talking about and wants to read up on it themselves. Thank you all very much for watching. I appreciate all the support and feedback that I have been receiving. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, as I will have more City Skylines content in the future.